Thank you, honorable members. Before we proceed, I would like to remind you that the virtual mini plenary is deemed to be in the precinct of Parliament and constitute a meeting of the National Assembly for debating purposes only. In addition, honorable members, to the rules of virtual sittings, the rules of the National Assembly, including the rules of debate, apply. Members enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Assembly. Members should equally note that anything said in the visual platform is deemed to have been said in the House and may be ruled upon. All members who have logged in shall be considered to be present and are requested to mute their microphone and only unmute when recognized to speak. This is because the mics are very sensitive and will pick up noise which might disturb the attention of other members. When recognized to speak, please unmute your microphone, and where connectivity permits, connect your video. Members may make use of the icon on the bar at the bottom of their screens, which has an option that allows a member to put up his or her hand to point or points of order. The Secretariat will assist in alerting the chairperson to members requesting to speak. When using the virtual system, members are urged to refrain or desist from unnecessary points of order or interjections. Lastly, honorable members, I wish to remind you that we are meeting in a mini plenary session, and therefore any decision will be taken in a full plenary session of the Assembly. The first order of the day on the order paper is a motion in the name of Mr. J.S. Malema. I now recognize Honorable Malema. Honorable Malema, I mean. Now it's
Madam
your turn.
Speaker,
I recognize you.
We are here to introduce the EFF motion on the termination of all diplomatic relationship with the apartheid state of Israel, in particular the removal of its embassy from our land.
Honorable Malema,
Accordingly, we table a draft resolution, understanding that at a later stage, when the full plenary of parliamentarians see, the House will vote and hopefully do so in our favor. Our call is based on the brutal and inhumane violence that the apartheid state of Israel has unleashed on the people of Gaza over the past several weeks.
May the IT just, Honorable Malema, I'm sorry to do this to you. There is a point of order. Honorable Kunevat, I think I saw your hand up. There is a hand here in the platform. I recognize you, Honorable Member, who had his hand up. You may speak. If you don't, then we shall proceed, and I assume that you forfeit your speaking right because I have recognized you. Having no hand, that the hand has disappeared, Honorable Malema, my apology for that. You may proceed. Honorable Malema, the hand has gone down.
This violence has been over 11,000 Palestinians massacred in an unprecedented military bombardment of unarmed, innocent, and helpless civilians in the whole of human history. In this inhuman bombardment, the Israeli Defense Force has murdered 4,650 children, 3,145 women, 198 medics, 22 civil defense personnel, and 51 journalists. Reports also indicate that 29,200 Palestinians in Gaza are injured. Above all, at least 3,600 people remain unaccounted for. In the devastation of buildings and landscapes, apartheid Israel aggression has forced 25 hospitals and 52 healthcare centers out of service, while 55 ambulances were targeted by Israeli forces. This should tell us that indeed Israel has declared war against children, hospitals, ambulances, journalists, and general campaign to wipe Palestinians off face of the earth. Many here will try to defend the defenseless situation in that country. But we all know that this is not defensible. However, this will be deliberate effort to blind us to the true story of Palestine, a story of over 70 of inhumanity that started with a colonial military occupation and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians by Zionist forces that established the state of Israel in 1948 as an apartheid state. A story of what Palestinians call the Nakaba, where Zionist colonial forces backed by British and USA governments expelled at least 750,000 Palestinians from their homes, lands, and captured 78% of historic Palestine. Here is where the remaining 22% was divided into what we now call the occupied West Bank and the besieged Gaza Strip. Since then, even the 22% was never allowed any form of self-determination. Palestinians have lived under Israeli military occupation without basic human rights, such as the rights to life, the right to equality, the right to a fair trial, the right to protest, the freedom of speech, the freedom of movement, the freedom of assembly or media freedom. This has been going on not since October 2023, but since 1948. And that is 75 years of hell, mass murder, ethnic cleansing, and brutal humiliation. We must remember that over 12,000 Palestinians, children, have been detained since the year 2000 alone. Of this, over 700 children who are unaccounted for in Israel. In addition, Israel has over 7,000 political prisoners, 200 of which again are children. It is reported by Israel itself that on average 204 Palestinian children have been held in custody every month since 2012. The world is aware of all these facts. Israel does not see Palestinian children. It hates them the same way the apartheid regime hated children like Tsitsi Mashinini, Hector Peterson, and many who were murdered in Soweto in 1976 and beyond. The world is aware that Israel constructed a wall and fence that separated Palestinian towns and villages from Israel settlements, which designated only the occupied West and Gaza. In Gaza, for over 50 years, this has been caused a population of 2 million people living on top of each other, the most densely populated area on earth. There are over 100 racially discriminated checkpoints, separate roads in which over 130 occasional roadblocks and searches conducted subject Palestinians to constant humiliation and dehumanization. In recent years, before the current destruction of Gaza, Israel launched 4 protracted military assaults on Gaza alone in 2008, 2012, 2014, 2021. The 2008 assaults involved the use of internationally banned 2014. Over a span of 50 days, Israel killed more than 2,100 Palestinians, including 1,462 civilians and close to 500 children. During the assault, they called Operation Protective Edge, about 11,000 Palestinians were wounded, 20,000 homes destroyed, and 500,000 people displaced. So what is happening today is part of over half a century-old project to wipe Palestine and Palestinians off the face of the earth. It is a systematic and gradual genocide unleashed by the state that established itself as an ethnic exclusive state of Jews at the expense of indigenous Palestinian population. We must therefore reject the idea that because Israel calls itself a Jewish state, opposing its brutal apartheid system is anti-Semitic. There is nothing anti-Semitic about opposing injustice, particularly apartheid. Zionism does not equal Jewishness or Judaism. No one must manipulate scripture in the Bible or the Torah to promote ethnic cleansing, racism, and the mass murder of people. There are no special human beings with the right to massacre others so that they can benefit from the subsequent stolen land. We are all chosen people of God. We all loved by God, and we must oppose any form of inequality and racism, even by those who do it in the name of God. We must therefore never buy into the lie and propaganda that this is a religious war. This is not a holy war. It is an evil war by an evil regime that is driving an evil agenda. Israel is a Zionist apartheid regime seeking to wipe Palestinians off the face of the earth. Palestinians who have all the rights to exist, particularly in the land of their ancestors. We therefore call on all of the world to isolate Israel through boycotts, disinvestment, sanctions until they end their military occupation and allow Palestinian refugees in surrounding countries like Lebanon, Syria, the right of return. We call on the Ramaphosa ANC government to shut down the Israeli embassy in Pretoria and end diplomatic relations with that brutal apartheid Israel regime. In the name of our own constitutional values, we must end these relations until human rights of Palestinians are respected, promoted, and protected. Israel must comply with international law, and until then, any relations with them must be regarded as an offensive on our constitution. The president yesterday said they are going to send a complaint to International Criminal Court against Israel and Netanyahu, in line with what the president has said. And as survivors of apartheid ourselves, we must fight on the side of the Palestinian people and always be on the side of the weak. We therefore calling on members of parliament and the people of South Africa to support the call to remove the Palestinian Israeli embassy in South Africa. We can't share a territory with murderers. We say no to the embassy of Israel in South Africa. It must go, and it must go now. No justice, no peace. Free Palestine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now recognize the Honorable Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Honorable K.C. Mashego Dlamini. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen. The root cause of the war between Israel and Palestine go back to Israel's systematic oppression of the Palestinians over the past 75 years. The illegal occupation of their land and the ever-expanding web of illegal settlement deep into Palestinian territory. The ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian is not travesty that begins with the October the 7th attack this year. It has been a constant factor over many decades. Decades prior to the state of Israel being declared in 1948 based on petition, the Palestinians have been promised their own independent state. The promise were never fulfilled. Honorable members, since the 1998 Oslo Accord, the number of illegal Israel settlers occupying Palestinian land has increased from 250,000 at that time to over 700,000 today. All settlement and outposts are considered illegal under the international law as they violate the 4th Geneva Convention, which bans an occupying power from transferring its population to the area of occupiers. Israel has also built a separation wall that stretches for more than 700 kilometers through the West Bank, constructed deep into Palestinian territory, cutting Palestinians off from their farmland and water resources. The wall restricts the movement of more than 3 million Palestinians in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem, as do the 140 checkpoints that Palestinians have to cross in their daily commute to work. In 2014, the International Court of Justice declared the apartheid war illegal under the international law. Honorable members, the landmark UN Security Council Resolution 2334 is unequivocal on the issue of illegal Israel settlement. The resolution confirms that Israel settlement constitutes a flagrant violation under the international law, and instructively called for all settlement activities in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem, to immediately and completely cease. Israel continued to undermine the international community in its race to create fact on the ground. The action that we are witnessing daily by Israel are a violation of international law, including the UN Charter, the Geneva Convention, and its protocol. In its attack on civilians and taking a hostage, Hamas has also violated international law. Israel, as an occupier, does not have the right to defend itself using military means. This fact has been confirmed by the International Court of Justice. An occupying state cannot exercise control over territory it occupies and simultaneously military attack that territory on the claim that it is foreign and possess an exigent national security threat. The nation of Israel's right to defend itself through military means has been used erroneously to justify the unlawful use of force by Israel on the people of Gaza and the West Bank. International humanitarian law includes the obligation not to target civilians' population and the responsibility to protect civilians' armed conflict. Under the Geneva Convention, hospitals are considered civilian objects and must be protected. Article 12 clearly states that medical units shall be respected and protected at all times and shall not be object of attack. Article 14 of the Geneva Convention categorically states that starvation of civilians as a method of combating is prohibited. It is therefore prohibited to attack, destroy, remove, and render useless for the purpose object dispensable to the survival of the civilian population, such as foodstuff, agricultural area for the production of foodstuff, crop and livestock, drinking water installation, and supply and irrigation work. The instructions issued by the Israel authorities for the population of Gaza City to immediately leave their home, coupled with the complete siege, implicitly denying them food, water, electricity, and bombing apartments, schools, and hospitals are grave violation of international humanitarian law. The International Criminal Court need to expedite its investigation of Israel for committing war crime, including genocide, by bombarding and besieging Gaza. Honorable members, since 1994, South Africa's foreign policy position on Palestine has been consistent and has displayed systematic diplomatic support at multilateral, regional, and bilateral level, acting both as a catalyst and amplifier to the Palestinian cause. To this effect, South Africa has played a role in supporting peace efforts by sharing its negotiated transitional experience, supporting capacity building, and strengthening Palestinian itself, facilitating inter-Palestinian dialogue, including the appointment of a presidential special envoy and support at the African Union, amongst other initiatives. The South African Parliament voted on the 7th of March this year to downgrade the South African embassy in Israel, and the number of parties have agreed to that motion of the NFP, except being opposed by the DA, ACDP, IFP, and FFP. The National Assembly ultimately voted in favor of the downgrading of the South African embassy in Israel to a liaison officer, which served to realize the ANC 2017 conference resolution to downgrade the embassy to the liaison officer. Amidst the continued violation of the Palestinian human rights and the siege of Gaza, South Africa recalled its ambassador to Israel in May 2018 in protest against the massacre of Palestinians as they demonstrated peacefully at the Israel-Gaza border. Since 2018, the South African embassy in Israel has been headed by a charges affair. South Africa cannot have a normal relations with Israel for as long as Israel is committing war crime and genocide against the Palestinians, is intent on removing Palestinians from their land, and is unwilling to negotiate a viable peace plan without preconditions. South Africa cannot be party to Israel's action that will see the promise of Israel's statehood reduced into balkanized entities devoid of true sovereignty, without territory, and with no economic viability. Our government is in discussion with the matter of closing the Israel embassy in Pretoria, and will need to take into consideration that it may affect our diplomatic presence in Palestine. The demands from South Africans for the closure of the Israel embassy in Pretoria have merit, and the government is engaging all relevant stakeholders regarding our diplomatic relations with Israel, given the war crime and genocide we are witnessing in Gaza. Following the outcome of the cabinet meeting held on the 1st of November this year, South Africa commenced the process of recalling its diplomats from Tel Aviv. This decision was taken in light of the Israel's government campaign on ethnic cleansing in Gaza, which has seen thousands of civilian deaths, and as a result of the continual bombardment of residential buildings, hospitals, schools, with over 70% of the victims being women and children. South Africa is deeply concerned at the report that the number of children killed in Gaza since October 7 has surpassed the number of children killed across all the world's conflict zone since 2019. As the crisis has reached a catastrophic proportion, the UN Security Council has proved incapable of stopping the carnage and protecting civilians against the Israel military onslaught. The South African government is considering further concrete action to take. The Department of International Relations and Cooperation has demarched the ambassador of the State of Israel to South Africa, Mr. Alvid, on the 9th of November to express South African grave concerns regarding the current trajectory of events, especially the attacks on Gaza, which have seen over 11,000 civilians, including over 8,000 women and children killed by Israel airstrike. It was emphasized that there are war crimes under international law. That is war crime under international law. Ambassador Alif was informed that South Africa intends to request the International Criminal Court to investigate the leadership of Israel for war crime, crime against humanity, and genocide. South Africa will also request that the Hamas leadership be investigated for its violation of international law when it kidnaps and killed Israel's civilians. The UN Secretary General has amply stated, and I quote, he said, "The nightmare in Gaza is more than a humanitarian crisis. It is a crisis of humanity," close quote. South Africa is calling for an immediate ceasefire, urgently entry into Gaza of massive humanitarian aid, the urgent deployment of the UN Protection Force to protect civilians, the release of civilian hostage, and for the ICC to expedite its investigation and hold those who have directed this war accountable for their war crime. We must also ensure that a comprehensive arms embargo is imposed on Israel. We fully reject the forced display of the Palestinian people from their land, and we will not stand by and watch and every red line in war is crossed and the region descends into a zero-sum game of death and destruction. The time to act is now. Our common humanity dictates that all human life matters. I thank you, Chairperson.